Aloha and welcome to Salt of the Earth and Rose Yoga Tapping into Heart Courage. Today I invited my future co-conspirator and co-facilitator for Alchemical Union, my 4-week container about balancing your masculine feminine. So I wanted to bring along someone who would inform us about our unique energy signature of our masculine feminine, aka Venus and Mars. And I am also very intrigued and honored to have Erin Zinoble, who is a hospice nurse and an evolutionary astrology guide, along for the ride, because I feel like when we're doing the work, the emotional work, the psycho-spiritual work, that inevitably we are facing death. We are facing old ideas that are and beliefs that are ready to be transmuted. So I really resonate with the work that she actually embodies and faces and walks through in her daily life. So I'm really honored to have this mixture of embodiment present in our container. And so welcome, Erin, as we begin
Thank you.
this Uranus Jupiter conjunction.
Yeah, here we are. Thank you for that introduction. That was very sweet. And I'm honored to be here.
Well, I'd love to get have you weigh in about like how your work as a hospice nurse and themes that you have face and confront, or maybe even guide people through in the energy space that you hold, and how like astrology helps you and informs you. If you want to share your path with that or experience with that.
Yeah, that's a really big topic, but the work that I do in hospice obviously is emotionally tough, and there's a lot of it felt very intuitively guided for me to get into hospice work. And then it was like almost as soon as I got into it, I was like, what the heck am I doing here? So it almost put me in a place where I doubted my own intuition. But and this is where astrology kind of comes into, because astrology is such a great way to look at your life. It's a great lens to look at your life through. And it really helped me answer a lot of questions like, why am I so attracted to this work? What am I actually doing? Like, what is the nature of whatever drove me here? And they both kind of came into my life at the same time as well. And it was, I've loved astrology, kind of like pop astrology, ever since I was a teenager. Like I had my little Cosmo book, and if I had a boyfriend, I'd be looking up the sun signs type thing, kind of, that kind of stuff. But my upbringing was such that it wasn't really it was frowned upon, I guess. It was just like not encouraged. So I never really delved too deeply into it until a little bit later in life, when I went through a series of awakenings and realizations and just letting go of all that past, that I was like, okay, now I can really dive deep into this astrology thing. And about the same time, that same series of awakenings gave me the courage to also do hospice work, which is something I had wanted to do probably a good 10 years before I actually stepped into it. So they kind of came in together. And so I feel like that we're swimming together, both
Interesting
threads.
that I asked you about that, and that it
Mhm.
that is the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love for you to share a little bit about the value of finding out about like our own unique makes and models, of literally diving into and informing ourselves about the way Venus and Mars shows up in our chart.
Well, that is really interesting. Venus and Mars are what we all think of when we think of the masculine and the feminine dynamics and energies. And there's just a lot that you can see in any particular chart in the ways those two not just show up in their particular houses and signs, and how the person may relate depending on where they are in their life, because that will always change what the chart is telling us, because the chart is actually alive, in my opinion. And Venus and Mars are two planets that you can actually physically see as you go through your life. So it's going to change the way you communicate and relate to that. But I feel like I'm going off on a tangent here. But they're in relation to each other the moment that you're born, whether it's, you know, a new cycle beginning, or an opposition, a full cycle, or a fruition cycle. And so you can kind of take that and see how that plays out in your life in terms of your relationships, either with the opposite sex or internally with your own inner masculine and feminine energetics. So there's a lot to it. It's a really deep rabbit hole to go down, and I'm excited to explore it more in our container.
Beautiful. And you also are going to be offering on a separate app, like throughout the month, the different transits and giving like live updates, reports. What can you share about that?
I am really excited to offer that. It's something I just started with a small group, and it's just a really beautiful way for me personally to guide people and help and answer questions through their charts and what they're experiencing. Because, as you know, in my astrology studies, since I got to the point where I felt like I can offer a reading, the few times I've done that, it's just always felt not enough time. Like, one chart could be, I mean, that's your life, you know, in a chart. So it's hard to distill that into an hour and kind of be like, okay, we start here, we end here, now we're done. So I don't think I have that quite figured out yet, how to effectively do an hour reading. But with our container being, you know, a month long, it gives me more time to digest the particular pieces of the chart, and it gives people more time to digest the feedback. And it's more of a back and forth and moving with the charts versus just a sneak peek, which is also valuable. But I prefer the more drawn out.
It's like a little weather forecast along the way, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
You also mentioned something about the Venus, the 5-star. What did you call it? I'd love to hear about this. And is this like happening right now? Anyway, this is something new.
Well, it's a little bit new in my field too. Just kind of popping back up, I'll say. I learned about the Venus star points about, I think it would have been about a year ago now, is when I first learned about them and start studying them and finding mine in my chart, and, you know, asking around, learning more through experience. But just recently, they popped back in. Like, I can tell because I have like person A mentioning something about it, and then person B who doesn't know person A, and it's just kind of coming at me from all directions. So I revisited that again this week, and basically what it is we have Venus, we have our natal Venus placement, but we also have 5 other places around our chart where Venus has little vortexes of energy where we can give and receive energy to and from those in our life. And those are the 5 extra points, are the Venus star points. And that's based on where Venus has made conjunctions with the sun before and after your birth.
Interesting.
You can actually look around your chart and find those 5 points, and it always makes a star on your chart.
Oh, I love this. I have never heard about this. So I think this is an interesting development and timing wise.
Yeah.
For us to connect to. So I'm excited to have this aspect with us along the journey.
Yeah.
So I'd love to get a little glimpse of like what you've learned from being a hospice nurse, like just
Oh God.
yourself or messages from others. I'm sorry if I'm not honing in on a closer question, but it's more like, you know, in the mirror, looking in the mirror, like quality of life, you know, like what you've been inspired or informed by doing your work.
Well, I think when I was just getting into nursing, which was in 2007, is when I graduated nursing school. I was in a little apartment and I was volunteering for a hospice at that point. So I was sitting with the lady, and we became close. But I was also working as a nurse in the hospital. But I had a little book on my shelf and I can't even remember what it was, but it said something along the lines. I wish I could remember the exact quote and who said it, but I don't think I'll be able to. Of, a life spent preparing for death is a life well lived. Um, and it seems really kind of dark and, maybe a lot of people wouldn't like that approach to life, but for some reason it drew me in. And I feel like this whole journey, the whole time I was a nurse for 12 years in hospitals, 11 or 12 years, I had this little bug in the back of my ear saying, do hospice, do hospice. And it all came back to that, just this wanting to be, I feel like sometimes there's some things in life that we just want to be closer to. We don't really know why. And that was one of those things for me, just to know more about it. It's always been kind of like a fascination. It's the mystery. Um, you know, Maybe none of us really knows what lies beyond. And just this final act of letting go, which seems the most final, I guess is the best word for it. But really, when you think about in our lives, like we're always practicing letting go. It's something we're not always graceful at it. And in the couple years that I've been doing hospice now, I've seen many examples of, all different all different ways to exit this world, some graceful, some not. But I think it's really powerful to just be there and bear witness and be somehow make it less traumatic. I think that is more powerful than we know, and that it probably ripples across dimensions and lifetimes. And when I think of things like Dolores Cannon's work, where she does the hypnotherapy and the past life regressions, a lot of what often comes up is the trauma around dying. So to me, just to be there and help in any way, like in whatever way we know how to do in our current time, to make it more comfortable, to ease the process, to make it less traumatic, feels like really, really important, worthy work to be doing. And so that's part of why I do it.
Do you notice that the people really are receptive to that support and care, or are they more vulnerable in that state, or are they still like protective if they weren't that open in their life?
I think everybody is different, excuse me. Every single person who I've worked with, in this capacity is different than the next. And so also for me, it's just been about putting myself aside, my own ideas of what this should look like, and just meeting the person and family where they are.
Mm-hmm. Have you noticed, just like in our own evolution, just like getting hit with more light codes, the solar flares, like how we are all changing inevitably, no matter what we practice or believe? Like, do you feel like you have any like measured comparison from like 2 years ago versus now? Like how people are, what their attitude is, how they're leaving? Like, do you notice any difference of where people are at?
That's a really good question, and probably one I'd like to sit with for a while. Actually, I think that's a really great question. But first thought, nothing's popping out. But I honestly bet if I sat with that maybe there would be something. I don't want to just write it off, but yeah, there's often a lot of overwhelm and obviously anxiety and fear. So I feel like we're, and then on a collective level, kind of realizing the magnitude of this, and probably it will start to look a little better. But what I see right now is more of a continuation of what you might think of when you think of like the medical system in America. A lot of it is just suppressing symptoms, suppressing disease. We're not really getting to the root and healing that many people. We're just kind of taking care of people as they get sicker and sicker. So a lot of hospice work is just kind of the end result of that, and it's more of the same. And I would love to see that change sometime, in my lifetime, where we can, because you really have to get ahead of it. It's kind of like I said with that book, it's something you have to prepare for pretty much all your life, I feel. So, and we're not encouraged to do that. So, that's kind of how I feel the trajectory is going. Like right now, it's more of we use pain medicine and things to suppress all symptoms, anxiety, all that. I feel like maybe as we start to become more conscious of these things, maybe we'll see a little less of that and a little more of the great complementary therapies that there are to offer.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, that raises a question just in the nature of talking about the masculine and the feminine. Do you see a difference in the way the masculine and feminine are maybe in that stage dealing with that fear or anxiety?
Another really good question that would be worth like studying.
These are just coming to mind right now.
Yeah,
my own curiosity,
Yeah, I can't say any big difference between the two that I notice as like a major trend.
Not like more emotional for the women or more stoic for the men, or quicker or faster, or who's holding on longer, or I don't know. I'm just projecting my own, thoughts on the situation. So
I think it all comes down to the person and what they, how they live their life. And a lot of times there is a lot of holding on. I think I see it equally though, and everybody.
Well, I just want to commend you for that work. Like having that front row seat is not for the faint of heart. So thank you for being a nanny at that stage. Like that's an important nanny time,
Thank you for asking me about it.
So I'm curious about how astrology's kind of helped you with your masculine and feminine energies, and anything that you've shifted as a result.
Astrology in a big way has just helped me recognize where I'm at within all the archetypes, including the masculine and feminine. And so in a large way, it's a huge permission slip, but it's also not, it's not a way to make excuses. It's, because you can get that permission to accept yourself and be who you are through astrology or through many different means. But astrology is great because it also gives you tools of working with like, okay, maybe here's where I could balance things out a little more, or maybe here's where I could be a little more forgiving of myself and the way I've acted in relationships. And it also gives you keys to the trauma that you've gone through, which I think shapes a lot of our conditioning around masculine and the feminine, especially the feminine. So in that way, it can be a great guide to pointing out some of the sore spots and some of the things you could dive deeper into to attempt to heal that and resolve those traumas.
Yeah.
And then it just naturally comes back into balance once you start doing that work.
Well, for those that are really attracted to doing a deeper dive into like literally, making the space to take inventory, that are really craving some shifts in their life, this is just a beautiful multi-dimensional container, because we're not only just dealing with our psyche and our emotional body, but we're also getting like this little bit of like scientific manual of like from a bigger, a different lens. So it's, in that sense, it literally is like a cosmic inner self-responsibility deep dive, and it's why I'm excited about like all facets, because I'm, I consider myself a cosmic detective and always
Oh,
just curious about, life, how we operate, what motivates us, how we can, to find solutions is like my
right.
beacon model to help uplift humanity. So I'm always drawn to the micro macro, really close and then step away.
Mm-hmm.
What does the house look like on the inside? What does the house look like from the outside? And so this is the way I like to approach these things. And, this is some heavy lifting, but I also kind of want to hold people's hand in this circle to be like, okay, now let's look at it from the outside again. Like this is personal and then also impersonal, personal, impersonal. And I feel like that's what the chart does. It kind of assists us to not like be dragged down by whatever mechanisms, we've learned to cope with, or, the grooves we've made. But that's why emotional freedom technique, which I've been changed my life in clearing PTSD back in, I don't know, like 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been practicing myself with people and groups of people since 2008. And I just really haven't found anything else that's quite like as swift to connect like the psychological story and literally clear your mind and your body. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I'm excited to just have like another outer, I think when we have our own stories that we're looking at, feelings about the situation, most people who are drawn to this work also are drawn to our relationship junkies, like want to understand relationships, want to improve their relationships, which is like such an important and beautiful topic because all of life is relationship, it's like
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
about a romantic partner, life partner, blah, blah, is that real? Is that just the fairy tale that was conditioned? It doesn't matter. Like if, I tend to attract a spiritual crowd or people who believe in spirit, like if you believe that we're all one and we're going into this collective consciousness, well, then if you believe we're all God, aren't you always with God? Like whoever you're dealing with at the
Yeah,
grocery store, at the
right.
game, on your hike, like,
Mm-hmm.
aren't you always interacting with God? Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
take some real radical responsibility and stop putting it on the other person, what they're doing or not doing or triggering
Mm-hmm.
you. So this course is just like a timeless classic of just fundamental, foundational, looking at your own script of the things that have always happened, the things you wish would happen. And like, no, we're going to do the alchemy on the inside and really connect to like, are you what you wish to see in the world?
Yeah.
Are you responding and communicating with people clearly, genuinely, not blaming, guilting, shaming others? Like, are you just putting this responsibility on someone else of your own shortcomings so that they fill those holes? I mean, if you're attracted to this, it's because you are hoping to upgrade your relationships, upgrade your responses to things that are like, how come this keeps happening? Well, let's stop blaming on the outside and let's like take some inventory. And that's why, it doesn't matter what gender you are, what you identify it as, these energies are existing in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So, just really welcoming you all to do this detective work on the inside because it pays off. Once you expose a belief and question it, you realize like you can completely reinvent your canvas again. And
Mm-hmm.
what I call changing your mind and your body, like the moment we believe something new, it literally changes our biochemistry. So
Yeah.
that's why I love this work. It's the oldest course I've been teaching. In 2013 is when I first taught it. So I'm excited about this iteration because I haven't added the astrology with it. And I just feel like it's really an empowering aspect to put in, because it's not just you trusting yourself of like, oh, this is how I always act, but then you kind of get proof like, oh, this is kind of stereotypical of how this zodiac sign would act or feel in these conditions. And no one
Mm-hmm.
size fits all. So it's like we all do have a unique blueprint. And at the same time, we're not that original. You know? We all are understanding each other when we hear the other complain about something or whatever, you know, at least we've been
Yeah.
exposed to some of these feelings. Um, so yeah, what what are you excited about in potentiality for yourself and others?
Can I tell you what I'm excited about for the course that we're doing, that you're talking about is because of what you're saying. What you do, I feel like it's such a great compliment. First of all, it's astrologically like right on time because we have the nodes in Aries and Libra. We have Mercury on like real close to Chiron still, so that's your mind. Chiron is the wound in your body, changing your mind in your body. So as you're talking, I'm seeing the aspects, and it's like I don't know if you even know that that's going on, but it's so appropriate, you know, it's so right on time. But astrology a lot of times uh, can can bring fear, you know, because you see, oh, this looks scary, this is a scary aspect, this and that, but uh, it's something that needs to be digested and processed. And I think that um, the best way to do that is take it through the body. You know, maybe you do see something that scares you a little bit, or that you do have this realization of, okay, maybe this is what I'm doing that I could balance. But you ask your body and you clear it, and that's your technique that you're doing with the tapping, is changing the beliefs. And then as you change those beliefs, the way that you look at these aspects and these things in your chart will naturally change. You don't have to try to like make up a story that feels fake to you. As you clear it, as you take it through the body, it will just do that on its own. And that's the magic. That's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, thanks for voicing that. I mean, that's why this is like such that can seem like miraculous healing, honestly, but this is
Mm-hmm.
literally possible for people. So I know that the people that join, I know already their lives are going to change. Like it's not even
Mm-hmm.
anything I have to be attached to. If they're actually going to do it and do the tapping,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to change because our mind is so powerful, the impact it has on our
Yeah,
body.
it all
And
starts. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, yeah. Oh, I wanted to ask you just like what you feel like this Uranus Jupiter conjunction, like the fact that this is coming up right now and you and I are uniting
Yeah.
right now for May. Can you just give us a
Mm-hmm.
glimpse of like what you just said, like the potentiality of the timing of this?
I get really excited about this aspect. And I think it just today they got to the same degree, but you know, Jupiter will expand, you know, whatever it touches. It also has to do with your beliefs, the way you see the world. And it's got to do with direct experience. Like it rules Sagittarius, which is opposite of Gemini. Gemini would be like your book learning, like where you go to school and you learn. Like for me, I went to school and I learned how to be a nurse. That was Gemini. Opposite. That was Mercury opposite from Jupiter. Jupiter is when I went out to work and I threw the books out the window and I got that direct experience, and I knew the rules, but I knew that sometimes I had to break the rules, and you get the experience. Direct experience is what Jupiter is. And then Uranus is an awakening. It's it's an awakening. It's, I think it was Jeffrey Green that said liberation from the known. And it's abrupt. It can be, you know, it gets a bad rap sometimes because it causes these big abrupt changes, but it's also really exciting because it can make you see the world in a whole different way. So it's this direct experience of like an awakening, which to me is beautiful. And also Uranus rules astrology. So I'm personally seeing a lot more astrology come into my field. Now, this is happening right on the cusp of my 11th house. So I'm like, that's probably why that's all pouring in for me right now. Like, just people I know, like, that have never really wanted to talk about it before, just all these great new exciting opportunities and friends, community too. But Uranus rules all these things, rules astrology, community. So it might be, a lot of new communities being formed of like-minded people. It rules your authenticity, like letting your freak flag fly, not being afraid to be different. So, these are all good, big, exciting things. And it's also that genius level of mind where you get these great, brilliant ideas. That's all Uranus, and Jupiter and Uranus together it's just going to expand all that. And it's not just today, it's not just this week, it's like a whole new 14-year cycle. So I'm just really excited to see. Also, I'm not going to go on and on and on, but Uranus has to do with the nervous system, and we're in Taurus, which has to do with how we receive sensory input and the body. And so really relates back to what the tapping, because that can help change your mind, which is Uranus, your higher mind, in your body, Taurus, via your nervous system. So that's why I get so excited.
And like I think about electrical when I think of Uranus, Uranus.
Mhm.
That it's like we're dealing with the meridian system, which is like flashes of electrical impulses.
Yeah.
And we're just like imprinting our cellular memory. Like, ooh, I'm just so excited. And what I love about these kind of momentums too is that it sometimes feels predestined, like the group that will be attracted to come together almost feels like a soul group where we each are like the earth angel for each other. And it's like the perfect cocktail of like the sacred container we create, because we're all like, this is not a solo journey. We're actually benefiting from every single person who shows up there and puts their sauce into the mix, whether they're revealing their vulnerability, their aha, their negative emotion about something. Like, we're all bringing a piece to the pizza and then we all benefit. And it's like this glorious, like, I just feel like right now is such a time of like circular experiences, like all for one, one for all. And it's like, it just makes it more possible. And it's taking us out of the isolation or the belief that we're so uniquely up. And we need like the containers. And that's what I love. It's like, no, I mean, I'm just hearing the call to offer this again, but also the right players are showing up and the people that need the medicine. But it's like the giving and receiving is kind of what I heard you say. Like, it's about reciprocity right now.
Yeah.
Like the healer is also the beneficiary of the person getting the healing. Like, there's no better or worse, like right now we're just all on time to play our part so we can evolve together. We're all part of the machinery.
Right. You just keep following your heart. It'll put you in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. So I just love that, like, in us just sharing right now, it's so much showing the map is like as above, so below, as above, so below,
And there's your microcosm, macrocosm.
Yeah. And this is just a time while we're in a body, while we're here, like planting our feet in the earth and like really inhabiting our unique expression. And who would we be if we like really were in our individual divine masculine and divine feminine, the embodying it and modeling it part, and not wait till they change and this war ends. And no, like we are, like, this is the most radical thing you can do to contribute to peace on earth. Seriously.
Yes, agreed.
All right. All right, it's 10:44 here, 1:44, so right on time. Get in on the early bird special till April 22nd. Otherwise, you have time to join us until May 11th. Bring a friend to do the work and heavy lifting together. And Erin and I will be your midwives on this process. So thanks so much, Erin, for saying the sacred yes and being of service with your gifts and your own intuition that you followed. Any parting words?
Well, I just want to say thank you too, Rushka, for showing up and doing the work that you do and being my partner in crime for this.
Awesome. Okay, I hope we see some of you in the container Alchemical Union, balancing your inner yin yang. Bye.